Just a Job is the podcast for the modern woman to redefine what success looks like. We highlight real women and their real stories.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Just a Job. I feel like now I need to say hey everybody because that's what you say. Maybe I need to come up with my own thing.
What up, everybody?
No, I'm just kidding. That was wrong.
Hey,
When you made
welcome
that
back.
TikTok, I was like, I need to find something else to say because that's
No,
all
but
I
that's
say
consistent.
every time,
It's the consistency that keeps everyone coming back, Ellen.
I guess.
Well, welcome back. Happy Monday. It is monthly one-on-one. Happy April, everybody. It's almost Taurus season. The best
Look out, you got
season.
two Tauruses in the room. Two Tauruses, two project managers.
yikes.
We both drive
Two of-
Jettas.
And apparently we're both mourning something today because we are both in dark colors
And we're not wearing our matching glasses. Damn it. We need to do that next time.
with cahoops. Yeah. Today we are going to talk about a whole slew of things, but I was just telling Ellen, I always like to start these episodes with something. And Ellen came so prepared to last month's episode, so I came so prepared to this month's episode along with Ellen, but now I'm at least a little bit more prepared. I'd like to think that it's probably due to the fact that now I'm only working like 20 hours a week. So anyways, Ellen, you said yours are kind of light and fluffy. Mine are a little more like, where do you want to start?
Ooh, okay. The first place I will start. Wait, what did I say earlier? Hang on, cut this out, but now I'm having a brain fart. What did I say earlier? I literally
TikTok.
Oh, okay, I remember. Thank you. Okay, you are all in the presence of a celebrity because I went viral on TikTok. That's right. This girl, 60,000 views over here. I am famous.
Ellen,
Yeah.
my goodness.
I am famous. It has all gone
Great.
to my head, and now I need to go talk about this with my therapist because my head is huge. I feel like I am walking amongst losers, and I am the winner.
I don't know if I should laugh or cry.
That's disgusting. I take it back. But truly, I was like, oh my God. Okay, viral on TikTok. I also, speaking of TikTok, I blocked Ron.
Oh,
I had to do it. He started like commenting on every single video, being like, oh, you're a beautiful woman. You need to do this, this, this. And I'm like, it went from really sweet and nice to a little weird and now annoying. So goodbye, Ron. Good riddance. I blocked him.
Oh,
He had
Johnny's
to go.
He's gonna come for the pod next,
I'm
and
like-
it's gonna have to be my problem. No, I'm just kidding.
Sorry. So I've had some interesting TikTok ventures recently. And from TikTok, I've had people reach out to me on LinkedIn now, which is so cool to be like, this one woman the other day was like, hey, I work in a healthcare and technology company in San Diego. I loved your presence. I loved your experience that you talked about. We're not hiring right now, but I want to stay in touch with you. And I was like, okay, cool, amazing.
We love it.
So that's been really weird, but fun at the same time. It's Monday. I'm starting my very first day at my new job, you guys.
Whoa, to future Ellen.
Good luck. Scary. Thank you. I'm nervous, but excited. I got my equipment shipped to me, and it is the largest Mac I've ever seen in my life. It's so heavy. I'm like, I am not an engineer. I do not need this fancy of a computer, but yet here we are. So that's kind of cool.
That is sweet. We love corporate or company issued equipment.
Also, they gave me the fucking ugliest laptop cover I've ever seen in my life. I'm so sorry. It's so ugly.
If anyone, no, seriously, I think that this is such a missed market. Okay,
yes.
we're exploring something exciting, and I feel like this conversation is just already alluding to it. We're exploring merch, and Ellen and I were talking. Remember, like in college sororities, it was like t-shirt time for everything. Like that person needs to have that same level of energy and commitment and style within a corporate company. Like, I don't care if it's technology. If you have cute shit, I'll wear it. And you will probably not be doting that computer bag anytime soon. But like, if it was
foul,
if it was precious and cute and you were excited about it, like I'm sure you would. But
even like the company
Missed the
colors are
mark.
even pretty, you know, like I would enjoy a garment or a bag of some kind in that color.
Mhm.
But it's just like, if you close your eyes and you think of a 50-year-old man in the airport who's like going to the next sales conference and he's carrying a really ugly briefcase, that's what it looks like.
That ain't you. That just ain't you.
I have a reputation to uphold. I can't be seen walking around with that ugly of a bag. Absolutely not. Okay, I'm feisty today. Sorry.
No,
I'm getting
it's
very
okay.
worked up over this bag. Oh my god. So those are some interesting things. New job and TikTok. There's my fun little summary.
6 months from
Okay,
now,
Sarah.
you will be a TikTok star. Okay, yeah. So I have some things that I think are very interesting since joining the Have Fun Employment group. I feel like basically everything that's like literally, it's all consuming. All I do is just like think about not like a company or like working. I just think about like, well, also because of the podcast, just like workplace settings, all these things. So there's two interesting things that I noticed, and then a third fun one. California is introducing a bill that they're calling the Right to Disconnect bill. Now, this is basically effective in other countries. Like, I remember learning about this in France. It's essentially a bill that would give California workers the right to ignore non-emergency messages and calls from their boss while they are off the clock.
Snaps for California. People always complain that we have annoying laws. Give me this all day, every day.
It's your high tax dollars going to good use, baby.
Better be going to something. Jesus.
But I think it's interesting. It's the first state in the US to have a right to disconnect law. So I can appreciate it. California's doing some shiz. Let's hope that it goes into effect. And it's not applicable to all industries, obviously. If you work, like if you're a
In a
doctor, you can't just,
hospital. Right.
yeah, you can't just be like, yeah, I'm not just going to come in. But like if you work in marketing, like really there's no emergencies.
Agreed.
So that is one. The second is this idea of the glass cliff. So basically, it's a theory that explains why women are promoted to senior leadership positions when a company is like on the brink of failure. And it was a study in the UK that came up with the phrase glass cliff, which I think is so fascinating. And it found that women are commonly brought in as the CEO when the biz has been performing poorly for at least 5 months prior. It puts women in a difficult position to achieve success. Boeing just recently did it within the last 2 weeks. GM did it a few years ago. And it's so fascinating to me because it's basically like, oh, there we go. Here's another woman coming in to just like clean all the shiz up that you've created. But I think the fucked up part about it is there's a theory that women accept these roles men would never choose to accept because they believe it's the only time that they'll ever have a shot at having such an esteemed title as CEO. Almost as like if success outside of this is impossible. Like they couldn't just get it on their own merit. They have to have somebody else's basically shit storm to go clean up.
And on top of that too, they're brought in at a time of chaos and turmoil, again, thinking that this is potentially their one shot to have that C-suite title, but then accepting all of the stress, all of the blame if it's a crisis like Boeing, the example you gave. Then if they aren't able to clean it up, which I don't even know how you would even attempt to tackle a problem like that when they're not successful or it takes longer maybe than they had anticipated, they own that failure. And then that inability to turn a company upside down, all of the blame is placed on them as well. Exactly. And I think that's another kind of, I don't want to say it doesn't surprise me, but it's kind of like, of course, something like that would happen where it's that pattern of it's their one shot. They accept it because, oh my God, I would never say no to this because I want that on my resume. I want that experience to then be brought into a shitstorm. No one can solve this. It's an impossible job. And then all the blame gets passed on to the woman. It's nuts.
And expectations remain as is. When the man got to get the boot out or leave on his own accord, the woman has held to the same expectations and probably has less resources. So super fascinating, those two things. One good, one not great. the other one that I have is maybe this is also too, like you had talked about this when you were going through the job search of just being delusional in DMs.
Yeah.
And it is such a fun game to play. And
It's even more fun when they actually reply. Jesus.
I'm sure of it. I'm over here being so delusional, but like I am Instagram DMing founders of companies. And I'm like, this is a damn blast. But also too, like some of these founders, I was actually I reached out to Maggie, one of the founders at Recess Pickleball.
Cute.
I myself do not play pickleball. She has less than 1,000 followers on Instagram, and I'm like, bingo, I'm gonna get in, and but then I'm also
She'll see
like,
the message.
yeah, I'm gonna hope that
Mhm.
she sees it. So if she listens to this, hi,
Hey.
it's me.
Sarah's very smart. She's very organized. She's exceptional leadership qualities. Any project you hand her, she can do. And she's a fun person to be around as well. Clip that, send it to her.
Words from my friend. But anyways, those are my three things. So bulk of the episode, we wanted
Hang
to
on.
talk today. Wait.
Not me talking about my swollen head and TikTok and you bringing in wonderful, well thought out, researched articles about women's career evolutions. Ooh, okay. I need to be more prepared next time. So typical.
No,
So
not
typical.
at all. Not at all. I didn't tell
That's
you what I was
hysterical.
talking about.
Yeah,
So-
now I feel like a big dummy for not bringing a cool research article in to talk.
Okay, you have 20 minutes between now and the end of the podcast. Like she's scrolling on TikTok while we're recording.
No, it's like my eyes are over here the whole time looking at my phone.
Like, no, listen to me.
That was
Okay,
funny.
now that we've
Those
now
were
that we've
great, though.
burst the-
Really.
Oh, thank you.
Mhm.
But something to keep your eye out on. Next time you see a female CEO, celebrate her, but also question the intentions. That took a second. Okay. The bulk of today's episode, these are things
Yes.
that we've talked about. And I think that we initially talked about them like in our very first, like, get to know us, kind of like the story of us. And we've been talking obviously with a lot of women and we focus on transitions. And Ellen and I were like, why don't we talk about our own transitions?
Mhm.
And not just like transitions from job to job to job, but like even transitions within those jobs or getting into a project or I don't know, whatever it is. So we are going to run through that. But Ellen, I want to pass the mic over to you. What is one transition that you were thinking of like immediately? You're like, oh, I need to talk about this.
Oh, my very first one was I was making the transition from working as a teacher in Manhattan, Kansas, cutie at K-State. It was a very like business structured center. They had directors and there was opportunity for advancement there. It was like it was a business setting, I'll say.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to find a way to move to Kansas City, one to be with friends, two to be with Tim, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I had nannied previously and that's kind of where the money is and I wanted to make more money and I wanted something that I felt like I had a little bit more control over. So I went down the path of looking to nanny and I had found a family. It was going really well throughout the interview process. And I was like, I had either just accepted or was close to accepting it. And I remember like describing it to some people of like, okay, here's where I'm at, but this is what I'm going to be doing next. And that was at a time where I don't know. I always feel like I look back on my experience with like the early childhood education space or just education in general it's often a profession that's looked down upon. Typically women do it. It's the easier, at least in my opinion, easier out major to do in college and it's kind of an easier degree to get. And the hours you put in are not reflected in the pay. People kind of walk all over you and in my opinion it's a profession that's looked down upon. And so whenever I would tell people that, it was always kind of I didn't love telling people that I was a teacher or that I was a nanny. And so through the transition from teacher to nanny in my head I was like, oh, this is a good career move for me. I'm going to be making more money. Again, I have more autonomy. But I remember describing my new role to people, and people, I don't know if people just didn't get it or didn't see the value, which then I took on as, what the hell am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
Like this choice is not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not the corporate finance girl. Like that's, and I think that transition taught me a lot of things because I felt good about it, but hearing what people had to say about it made me, I took in other people's opinions of their thoughts of my job and what I decided to do, how I decided to spend my time. And in that, I remember thinking and like taking it in, and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't allow myself to be like, no, this is what I want to do. Not that I don't care what anyone else thinks, but to kind of put those blinders up and say, no, this is right for me. And people can have opinions and think what they want, but I'm not going to allow that to affect me or my decision making. So I look back on that, and it kind of makes me sad because I wish I could have had the confidence to either speak more eloquently about what I was hoping to do, or just have the confidence in saying that, no, this is the right thing for me. And
Mm-hmm.
kind of who cares what anybody else thinks. And if it makes sense and it's right for me, then you should be happy for me, kind of thing. And that, I mean, I was working full time. I wasn't making wonderful money, but I mean, I was still a salaried employee, and I got
Mm-hmm.
bonuses. And I mean, it was still, it's of course different than like a corporate structure, but I still think that like I was working in a professional environment, but some people didn't see that as professional. So that's the first like transition I thought of, as like, that's kind of when I first had my first observation of, what am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
Is this really what I want to continue doing? And I kind of went back and forth for a while, but I took the job, and I'm glad that I did.
Yeah.
And I think it brought me some really good learnings, and also kind of helped me understand of boundaries and things I am and I'm not willing to accept in the workplace, whatever the workplace looks like, whether it's non-traditional or more traditional. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I share that story because I think there's a lot of people that either are thinking about making a career decision, or change, or maybe it's a slight, maybe you're in the medical field, instead of practicing clinically, you're maybe going to something that is more sales focused, I don't know, as an example. And people don't see that as good enough because you're not doing, it's the change, it's not the
Mm-hmm.
norm maybe.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
knowing that it's the right move for you, and kind of like, again, putting those blinders on and just thinking, if it's right for me, then I feel good about this. Again, it kind of doesn't matter what other people think.
Right. Right. Like it's the first time that you were trying to either like listen or block out of people's opinions. And it's always tough too
Yeah.
because I feel like your job is such a it's a piece of who you are, and it's like comes with a sense of pride, especially very early on in your career. And you do want to
Mhm.
have that sense of like when you're telling somebody what you do, you want to be like, yeah, I'm a blottity blottity ah. Like
Mhm.
what like but that's young career mentality,
Yeah.
you know, like of course everybody would love to say like I'm a blank esteemed job, but like
Mhm.
who who puts the value on that opinion? I think
Right.
it's tough too because there's I mean we've talked about this, like there's definitely experiences where you're talking to somebody that's their opinion means a lot to you, but they
Yeah.
don't necessarily understand you or like why you're excited about something. And so when they don't necessarily have an opinion that you agree with, it's like kind of hard to stomach it.
Mhm.
And it's tough to like try to not let their feelings become your feelings, but
Mhm.
that I feel like that's just like a thing that comes with time, you know?
Right.
Like you
Right.
can't blame your younger self for like feeling the way that you did or internalizing what you did. And
Yeah.
obviously you didn't internalize it too much because you still pursued it and you're where
Yeah.
you're at today because of it.
Mhm.
Um
Okay. I just thought of a story that is like, I can't believe I forgot. I probably suppressed it because I was like, what the what is going on? We were living in Kansas City. We went to like some party somewhere, and I
Mhm.
was talking to a guy that I knew of, but I wasn't like really friends with. It was
Sure.
like more of an acquaintance, I'd say. And he worked in the corporate world. I have no idea what he did. And him and his wife were about to have a baby. And he was talking about like their pregnancy, his wife's pregnancy and like how it's been going, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, I'm a nanny. Like, I love working with little kids. Like, that's so exciting. I love talking about this stuff. And he was asking me about nannying. And he was like, yeah, we want to get a nanny. And I was like, oh, good for you guys. Like, that's amazing that you've made the decision, whatever. And he's like, yeah, it should be really easy because, like, you make what, $10 an hour? He said this to my face. And I was like,
Was there alcohol involved? And like, how did you just like keep
literally, I
drinking?
don't even
Gotta keep your
remember.
mouth busy.
But I was like, no. And he goes, oh, what do you mean, $12 an hour? And I was like, this is
Bro.
so condescending. And I think genuinely that this is like the kind of person that he is. It's just like, oh, whatever, like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my God, it was so condescending. And I don't even remember what I said, but I was like so frozen in the moment of being like another example of like that profession is so looked down upon. And I think I remember saying so I probably ended up telling him what I made, which like at the time I think I made like $42,000. But still, like, think about that. A family is paying me $42,000. I mean, that's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
money.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I told him around how much I made or something like that. And he was like, oh my gosh, like I had no idea. And I'm like, oh my God, it just made me so angry. But it's like another example of how kind of just looked down upon it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't
And
know.
it's just
I
that
forgot
like
about that.
it's not traditional, so people don't understand it. But that doesn't mean that your opinion should come from like if you don't understand it, you
Yeah.
don't get to have an opinion on it. How a lot of
No.
that's how a lot of things in life are. If like you don't know it fully,
Yeah.
like that conversation could have been handled much differently. That's for sure.
I'm like, oh, I should have said this. I hate when I do that though. I'm like not
Ugh,
witty
I know.
enough to say something like
I
that in
know.
the moment.
Years later, you're like, "Hey, buddy, remember that
Hey,
one
buddy.
time?"
Seriously.
Got my
Okay.
eyes
I've
on
just
you.
talked literally for like 20 minutes. Sarah,
Hmm.
when we were talking about the idea of transitions and going from one place to another, whether it's moving or a job or moving industries, what was the first transition that stuck out to you?
I mean, very similar to you. I mean, and I've talked about it extensively on the podcast. And I feel like we just interviewed somebody. She called it her North Star. And I was like, that's so important. I feel like this is the
Yeah.
moment in time for me where I was like, this is going to have really long lasting impacts.
Mm.
So when I was in college, I was, like I said in the past, like, I was like, I want to freaking work. I want to
Mm-hmm.
just get out there and I want to be the superstar A student, but in the workplace. And so, like, had internships and my internship, my basically going into senior year and then throughout senior year was at a company, and the company then hired me on and I started working with them full time. And again, it was like very quickly after graduation that I was like, oh wow, adulthood is very different. And it was the experience of the transition from intern to full-time work
Mm.
within a specific company that was super fascinating, because like interns, when you're at a company, they're kind of treated as like the fun little kids, right? Like you still get work, but you're also like your expectations are a little bit lower.
It's like, oh, cute. They're still
Cute.
learning.
Yeah, they're
Mm-hmm.
still learning. So there's like grace. And when then I started working full time, it was like, oh God, like the job that I thought I was doing was so different. I was
Mm.
working with clients, like I was being way more hands on. I think the part in all of it is that I was pretty much getting paid the same amount. I thankfully had a paid internship right
Mm-hmm.
before graduating. And then that job turned into my job, but I wasn't getting paid much more, but the responsibilities just grew. And that's when I had that kind of like breakdown of like, oh my God, I got to be doing this for the rest of my life. I think also too, the transition of that is like for the first 22 years of your life, everything is defined by time. You're, in grade school, you're done, you graduate. And then you go to middle school, you're done, you graduate, you do high school. Like you have these markers in time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important because it's like, it gives you an end goal. And
Mhm.
in some way there's an end goal. You graduate, you come out of school, there's no end goal. It's basically retirement. So you're like, oh God. Like I'm looking at 40 years down the line. Like that's so stressful.
Yeah.
And I think that transition, besides like the extra work, the no pay, it was just the sheer fact of like, I'm in this for the long haul. I don't go back to school at the end of the summer. I'm here. I'm
Yeah.
here, baby. And even just saying that now, I think that that is why I enjoy the work that I'm currently doing, where it's like
Mm.
contract based. Either there's like some potential end goal, or like there's an exit plan if needed, or if I love it, like I'm staying, I'm sticking around, and I don't need that
Mhm.
end goal.
Mhm.
But I God, there was some term. It's like basically a part of, I don't know, I'd have to look it up, but it's like there's like a word for that where it's basically like the first 22 years of your life you have a schedule, and then you're basically just thrown out into it, and you're like, oh, make your own schedule. Oh, here you go. So that
Mhm.
that to me is like one of the biggest transitions. I would also say, like you had just mentioned it, and I don't know that it was one that I actually put in the
Mm.
show notes, was moving. So like I've had the opportunity with Michael's job to move. And I've loved it. Like at the time, obviously it's like stressful to move, it's sad and it's scary to move. And I think that the move from Omaha to Delaware was really, really big, because for me, it wasn't necessarily like job related. So I didn't have
Mm.
an initial, besides like my relationship with Michael, like I didn't have a like initial reason to move to Delaware. I didn't have a draw or something pulling me here besides Michael and
Mhm.
the doogie. And I struggled at first. Like it was really fun. Obviously, when you move anywhere new, there's like always
Yeah.
like a lure. Like it like feels like vacation.
Yes.
And the transition from the Midwest to the East Coast is like a real thing. And I don't think that like
Yeah.
people joke about it. They're like, oh, how's the East Coast? It was tough. And even to this day,
Yeah.
it's still tough. That's not like navigating work. That's like navigating people and places. Yeah, those are the kind of two big ones. There's like a lot of transitions that I feel like I've had, but now I'm
Mm.
blanking. Ellen,
Mhm.
back to you.
Well, okay. On what you were saying earlier, like how cool to be able to tie learnings and previous experiences of like of that first job out of college kind of to now with contract
Mm-hmm.
work of like,
Mm-hmm.
you learned what you were willing to take and where your boundaries were and
Mm-hmm.
where your like threshold of risk was to be able to make decisions now for your career and kind of what you want to do next. So it's cool you can tie those experiences together and be like, see, it's all happening for a reason.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um
Uh, I thought of one more really quick.
yeah.
So I started a business in 2021. I started a project management consulting business. Basically, I was like, it was kind of in 2020 when everybody was like, I'm going to own a side gig. And I was like,
Yeah.
I'm going to be a part of this. And so I like started my business, and I was trying to navigate full-time work, being a fitness influencer, working at a bridal salon, and doing this. And it was a
No big
lot.
deal.
It was a lot.
Yeah.
Like I remember, I mean, like TMI, I had like health issues. Like I like had missed periods because I was so stressed out. Like, and that had
Mhm.
never happened to me before. And I remember basically one day I was like, I think I'm done with this. Like I need a transition out.
Yeah.
And that's always like a kind of sad thing, because like, was it my full-time work? Was I making a ton of money from it? No. But was it something that really excited me and I like
Mhm.
felt really proud of? Yes. And so like the transition out of that and basically like getting back into my like full-time job and other side things was interesting, because that was the first time I was ever like leaving something that was my own. So
Yeah.
that was a interesting ride. But
Mhm.
now I've done all the talking.
Stop. It's kind of the purpose of this whole thing, right? Is
Oh
us
my God.
gabbing away.
Blah blah blah.
I in my me taking notes
Oh
era,
yes, yes, yes.
took some notes kind of like I guess almost tying all of this together with leaving my previous company. Like I left in December, but months leading up to that, I could kind of start to see things were not going well. They had done so many layoffs previously, and I was kind of like, what do I do I stay? Do I go? Like I kind of had one foot out the door. And there was months of uncertainty
Mm-hmm.
to the point where it was like a daily changing thing at work where we would have a
Yeah.
really good day, light at the end of the tunnel. The next day, they're closing their doors almost. I mean, it was a constant state of not having a solid foundation at work. So when I finally was able to like make my decision and get out of there, it felt like, oh, good, okay. But then it was almost immediately, now what? And whenever I'm like recently talking to people about like especially during the period of time where I wasn't like now, well, I guess my first day is Monday, but of the period where I'm not working, people when people are like, "Oh, what do you do for work?" I found myself being like, like I don't know what to say, and I would
You're like, I'm
tie.
living. I'm
I know. I
living.
was
That's my
like,
job.
the first time someone asked me, I was like, "Uh-oh, I don't know what to say." It was so uncomfortable, but I tell people now, and I feel like I've been able to formulate my answer correctly now is like, I'm so grateful for this and for the podcast because it's like just given me such an fun, creative outlet. And
Mm-hmm.
then, like, this is where like my passion is and really where I want to put my time and energy and love into to watch this grow.
Mm-hmm.
And while doing this, but then also looking for a full time job was so hard because I'm like, I don't care about anything else. This is what I want
Yeah.
to be doing, but like, we gotta pay the bills. I'm in San Diego. It's expensive over here. So like, I need a full time job, which
Mm-hmm.
and it's been really interesting to like take a page literally out of our own
I
book and be
know.
like,
I know.
it can be just a job. And like it finally sunk in a couple weeks ago where I was like, oh, I can still do something fun and exciting and creative and fulfilling outside of work, but I can also still put in effort and be successful in the workplace and just adopt that just a job mentality because then I feel like I'll be able to have boundaries and feel fulfilled in a way that maybe I haven't felt fulfilled before.
Mm-hmm.
So that like kind of career crisis I was going through, I think like that just a job mentality truly like rooted me in I was making the right decision of whatever job I was looking for next and knowing that wherever I landed next like I had some criteria of what I wanted that to be, but knowing that I had this on the side as well was like, okay, I know like it's not the end of the world. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think like people talk about having hobbies just in general. And I heard there was some girl, actually, I think it was Michaela from Break Your Budget. She was like, if you don't have a hobby, you're a
Mm-hmm.
loser. And it made me laugh so hard because I was like, okay, that's hysterical. But she's talking about how you need to have like things to do outside of work and
Right.
how you need like whether it's cooking or exercising or whatever it is. And like now that we have this outside of work, this is not the only thing I do outside of work, everyone. Okay. I do other things, I swear. But like having this and also having that mindset of like, I don't have to have a dream job. Maybe a
Mm-hmm.
dream job doesn't even exist, but knowing that I can have a job that's good enough, that's also another book to check out, The
Mm-hmm.
Good Enough Job. Knowing that I can have that and put effort into it and still have it be like, challenging and fulfilling and have something on the side is like been such a interesting transition and kind of realization that I've been going through recent, like literally
Yeah.
even
It's like
I'm going through it right
I
now as I'm
know.
talking
I
about
know.
it.
It's like it's such a weird the best way I can describe it is like it's liberating. You pop the bubble. Like it just
Yeah.
is so there's so much more like freedom and ownership that comes with recognizing it's just a job. Like, if you haven't learned anything from the women that we've interviewed, this job that you're at right now is just a blip in your story. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's literally just going to be one of those things where you're like, oh, ha, 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 I worked at this place. Or like, oh my gosh, I'm so proud I worked at this place. Like, regardless of how you're feeling today, how you felt yesterday, how you think you'll feel in a few weeks, like,
Mm-hmm.
this will only be a small, small period of your life. And it is not everything that you'll ever experience in your life. And I think when you just tell yourself that, like, it's just a job, like, as
It's
much
like,
as you want to invest yourself in it, and granted, there's different situations where, like, if you're an entrepreneur, it is more than just a job. It's like your entire being. But like, when you just remove yourself from the work that you do, just click clacking at your desk, like, you're just, I don't know. So I think it is interesting though, the timing of this all, Ellen. Like, when we started the podcast, I mean, we like obviously thought through it back like in August and September, and then like really heads down started working in October. And like, that's right around the time that you kind of started feeling the feelings of like, oh my God, his
get me out of
impending
here.
doom, if
Yeah.
you will. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, how almost like serendipitous it is that all of this timing worked out really well, because I also too was going
Yes.
through like my transition from full-time employment to contract work in October. So it's like interesting now looking back on the past 6 months to be like, oh, you and I were both individually going through our own thing, and then like had this, and what we were going through at the time was job related.
Yeah.
And then
So
we were
weird.
we like didn't intentionally like think like, okay, now's when we start the podcast. It was just like we were leaning into the natural and organic timeline of it all. But it is kind of
Yeah.
cool to think about like the transition, and the
Totally.
mindset shift.
Well, and like even the interview that we had earlier today, like we were our guest was explaining about a story and an experience that she went through, and how it was, I think the word she used was mistake or error,
Mm-hmm.
and then she talked about her learnings from it. And like the reason we have the interviews that we're sharing our own stories is that like it's okay. These things happen for a reason. Like I quit my job for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's the podcast. Maybe it's something else in the future. I wish I could look into the future, but it's all happening for a
Right.
reason. And we share these stories specifically today about transitions to like, you know, if we can do it, you can do it. And it's so cool now, like hearing from
Mm-hmm.
friends and family too. Like Taylor, if you're listening, she's going through a career transition as well. And like the fact that we've been able to bond over that. And then she's like, the podcast has helped me so much. Just like
Mm-hmm.
hearing throughout all of the different industries of people that we speak with, that, if they can do it, I can do it. And like, that's the whole point of this podcast. I feel like now we're getting
Yeah.
soapboxy, but I like it.
No, I mean, it's true. Like, if anything, it's like, it's us having conversations about work. And if it leads to other people having more conversations about work and workplace settings and expectations and success, like,
Yeah.
like if one person has one conversation today, like, about this, and they
Mhm.
get something meaningful out of it, then like,
Totally.
we've done our job, and this hobby
Totally.
is worth it. But
100%.
I mean, I think it's important to note that like transitions happen on the daily. And I
Yeah.
think Ellen and I could probably do like a 4-hour episode on all the
Yeah.
transitions. And like, I know, especially even after hitting stop on recording and going through and editing, I'm gonna be like, oh man, I should have talked about this transition.
Yeah.
So like, it's always changing. And like, especially in your example, there's things that you kind of like block out that you don't talk
Yeah.
about or like think about anymore. But I mean, when you look back on your entire career, whether it's just starting or you've been doing it for 5, 10, 30 years, like, you can pivot, you can
Yeah.
change, you can have a
Mhm.
shift in your perspective, you can be super invested and you could be not so invested. Like, you're entitled to it all. So
Totally. And I mean, like, whatever transition it is that anyone might be going through, if it's like a promotion or a brand new career or like a career path or a title or an industry shift, like people have done it before. It's also like hard when you're going through it to know what you're going through until you stop and look back and you're like, oh my God, that was so hard. And wow, that was like, I did that, So maybe also take a second to like look back and be proud of yourself, because I
yeah,
kind of did that as I was talking earlier, which I feel
I
like you can
know.
see the wheels turning in my head.
Yeah.
But
It's not a bad thing to talk about yourself. And two, I'm going to offer up your time, Ellen. But like, if there's anybody that's listening and is just like like sometimes it's just nice to have a listening ear or somebody to just basically hear you out and then
Totally.
just like validate your feelings. So if you're ever in one of these kind of tough moments, like obviously anybody can reach out to us anytime. This was a good gab session.
It was. It feels good.
Also,
I'm like,
if you didn't see, Ellen put together a Q1 review, and it's just pretty incredible to like see everything and see how much support we've received and how many stories we've been able to share and how many people are like compelled to be on our podcast.
yes.
So
It was so fun to put together. And then I literally had a nightmare that I put it all together and I like forgot to include someone, or
yeah.
I like didn't count correctly the number of episodes that we had. So I had to like panic check it this morning to make sure I had
No,
all
you
the
did
like
great.
right numbers. But it's so cute and fun to look back on like what we've done. But then also like we teased about this earlier too. Like we've got our sights set on some merch in the future. Like we've got other fun things planned. Like we're booked and busy. Our calendars are full. I mean, we pretty much have almost all of Q2 booked, which is insane. Like fun things are on the horizon. Fun things.
Yeah. Yay. Well,
So
everyone,
exciting.
happy Monday. Ellen,
Happy Monday.
Happy first day to you. If you're listening to this and you have Ellen's phone number, Instagram, LinkedIn, send her a DM, buy her a coffee. We need her to be very caffeinated.
The shining star.
Give her all the warm wishes. Well, everyone, make sure to check us out on socials. Ellen, any parting comments?
Thanks, everybody. Oh, I do that. Hey, everybody. Thanks, everybody. I'm just going to stick with it because I think it works at this point,
Again,
and it's just
consistency.
natural. Yeah, consistency. Thanks, everybody. Really, like I have felt the warm fuzzies from our listeners and audience recently, and keep it up. Feels good. Also, if you are a new LinkedIn follower, kudos to you. Our LinkedIn has been popping off recently. So go like get a little corporate boost, maybe perhaps on your LinkedIn. Go give us a like. Thanks. XOXO.
And connect with the people that are following us because I think that is important. Spread the wealth, make friends with friends.
Yes.
So, all right, everyone, give us a shout if you can on socials. Otherwise, enjoy your Mondays and remember, it's just a job. We'll see ya.
Bye.